Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. My name is Margaret Wiltshire, and this is Lifestyle by Design, Not Default video podcast series. This is a video podcast series in which the stories of amazing individuals are shared, people who are on path and living their dream. And they are sharing their wonderful and amazing stories with the purpose to inspire and empower others to live their life's purpose too. Today, our very special guest is Julie Gammon. Julie, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me here.
I am honored to have you as our guest today, and today our topic will be awakening your inner voice. So, Julie, can you please describe to me what is your inner voice? What is the inner voice inside?
Oh, there's a lot of language around that. That's how I like to describe it. Other people might talk about it as their intuition, their inner knowing. It's really your highest self speaking to you, your soul, your soul voice. I mean, there's so many different ways of describing it. People have different ways of thinking about their connection with the divine or sourcing with the divine. So I think of it more as like the divine within me. And it connects me to my path, guides me through situations in my life. When I get too far away from my path, sometimes it reminds me, brings me back. For me, I don't know how it manifests for other people, but for me, sometimes it's a voice speaking to me, and it's pretty much always supportive. It's not that voice, your mom's voice or whatever that is, the inner critic. That's constantly putting yourself down and saying that you don't know what you're doing, you're not doing this right. And it's not like that. It feels very supportive. So my first experience with that I can really pinpoint came to me at the lowest point in my life. I was in my 20s and I was really making a lot of poor choices for myself. And I very clearly heard this voice say to me, and I knew that it was me. It was my higher self, and it said, "This isn't who you are." And it was so profound at that moment to hear that voice. Like I knew that it was me speaking to myself, and I also knew that it was right. And just hearing those words and feeling that connection with my inner self, my inner divine, my inner being. Again, there's lots of language around that. And I hate for language to interrupt people's understanding of that. Whatever your connection is with your higher self, there could be a moment like that where you just know that's what's going on. And my life changed that moment, like right there. It happened slowly, but that was really the first moment that I knew that I was not where I was supposed to be. And it took me probably another 7 or 8 years before I heard the voice again. I did make some changes in my life, but not enough. And then I heard the voice again, and it was very clear, and I was in a very unhappy relationship that we both knew that we shouldn't really still be together. Lots of things didn't feel right. I felt a lot of weight and pressure from my life, but didn't know how to make any changes, and that's when I heard the voice again. And it said, you need to heal quickly so that you can help other people. And so at that point, things really started changing very quickly. I started listening to my intuition in regards to food and making positive changes in my life. This is what I think the inner voice is for, to guide you through these moments. But I think that there's a lot of things that you have to do to foster that. Self-care, self-care, food. Then I started making all of those changes. I started getting energy work. I started getting massage. I cleaned up my diet. I started moving my body. Whatever that means for people, that's different for everybody. But these are all the things that started to happen and accelerate my connection with my inner voice. And it just kept getting stronger.
Okay. So tell me, how can one, now you had a series of events that you heard the voice and you heard it profoundly and you knew that this voice was different. You described that a little bit. Mm-hmm. So how can someone, because I know for me, I hear many different voices. Mm-hmm. I do have a critic that I thought I got rid of a long time ago, but this critic keeps showing up every time I want to do something important in my life. I want to make an important decision. Here comes this voice, that one would think would be on my side, but is not on my side, and usually tries to stop me from moving forward in a positive direction and doing really great things. And sometimes we do hear different voices and there are different things happening in our heads. So how can one be able to distinguish between all the voices that we hear daily, in our heads?
That's a very complicated question. I was lucky. I say I was lucky, but I had some pretty unhappy circumstances which kind of clobbered me over the head. And I consider myself lucky to have heard that voice very strongly at those times. So a way to foster that connection is the way to strengthening your divine self, strengthening your sense of self, strengthening your self-esteem. Those voices in your head that criticize you and tell you that you're not good enough, that's not the truth. That's not your higher self.
Okay.
You are light and love. You are gifted. You are a genius. You have incredible creativity and potential, and there's nothing stopping you from that except yourself and believing in the false voices that have been placed there by people, your parents, your teachers, your peers. We start to believe those and then we start to replay them and we get stuck in this loop. The only way out of that is self-care.
Okay. So when you say self-care, can you explain exactly what that means, self-care?
You need to do the things that feed your soul. And again, there's a lot of new agey kind of phrases that can apply, but I think that, however it best describes, there's lots of different ways of describing it. Just try to think about what that means for you. Maybe one phrase doesn't work for you, but another might. So, there's sourcing with the divine is, to me, a good description. It's feeding your soul and making yourself, your higher self, stronger. Your voice gets louder. Your intuition gets stronger. you feel better about yourself. You feel better about your life. You're doing what you should be doing. You're on your path. It takes work, because we are doing so many things in our lives that we should do. And why is that? Because people around us told us that we wouldn't be worth anything if we didn't have a high-paying job, because our partner tells us that we're not beautiful if we're not looking this way or doing something, there's all these reasons that erode our self-esteem. So every little thing that you do to take care of yourself, your higher self, to be true to yourself, and to feel that joy that is in there all the time, that sense of self, that being, that divine, that piece of the divine, that's you, that is unlimited potential. It's always there. And it's all in our head. And what we allow ourselves to believe, which is not always true. A lot of what we think and what we believe is not truth. Most of what we believe and what we think is not truth, as a matter of fact. What is truth? Truth is divine joy and love. That's truth. Look at a child. That's truth. That's the truth of spirit and truth of our being. And the more choices that you make that take you away from that, make you more unhappy, make you lose your inner voice, lose your intuition, because you have chopped it off and told yourself, your mind, your monkey mind, not your true mind, has shut you off from the truth of your being. So every little thing that you do that brings you to that place of joy, that's self-care.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit of some of the things that you do to nurture your soul and take care of yourself?
I think that's always evolving. A lot of the things that I do, I don't know that would necessarily be for everyone, because when I started, I could tell you maybe that would make more sense. Like when I first started to foster that. So one of the things that I did was I quit my corporate job and started working in a health food store, which was like a kid in a candy store. Huge learning for me there. Super supportive for cleaning up my diet and taking better care of myself, which of course fosters when you're rested and you're nurturing yourself and you're nourishing your body. Then you start to hear your intuition becomes stronger. You feel better. Belly dancing, believe it or not, was one of the first activities. I was doing some yoga. I was doing some very gentle yoga, but I feel like it was so sporadic at that point. It wasn't super, I didn't notice like any big effects from it. I knew I felt better doing it, but belly dancing was a really big key for me, moving your body. And I was lucky enough to have a very spiritual belly dance teacher. So it wasn't just about like shaking your body and trying to look sexy. It was the traditional empowering your feminine self was the focus. And so there was some really intense walking, dancing, shimmying meditation. And there was a lot of, I was very much affected by it. And of course, then there's all these theories that, you're shaking your hips, so you're opening and awakening your chakras, your energy centers, where a lot of this trauma in your body is held and stored. So I was clearing that energy, and I was getting rid of old stuff that was holding me down and making me feel bad about myself in very subtle ways. So there was a lot of growth for me through that. And when I started that, I got the new job at the health food store. I left the relationship that was holding me back. Things started happening. I started manifesting amazing things in my life, and I thought that at that point I was very stuck. So other things, and once you start just picking one small thing, like changing your breakfast to a green smoothie or a green juice, just a small little thing like that can start to make change. Maybe it's sitting next to a stream for 5 minutes, depending on where you live. Maybe it might be listening to guided meditation as you fall asleep at night, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, even if you can spare it. Finding small ways that nourish, I can throw out a lot of ideas, but it's so different for each person what really makes them feel good about themselves.
Okay. You talked about being blocked. You felt stuck, and you were able to manifest at that point in your life because you were becoming clear. You started taking care of yourself. You went through what self-care meant to you. Can you tell me a little bit about that time when you felt blocked or stuck? And then how were you able to manifest? What were you doing? And how do you still continue to do that today?
It's really been incredible. It's happened so many times in my life, but most recently, we always still have these beliefs and thought systems going on that need to be questioned, and you have to override them with your self-care and trying to remain open and positive, loving, compassionate. So, but the most recent thing that happened for me, which was pretty amazing, was a couple months ago. I guess it was in May. I was really feeling very stuck. I moved to a new city last year, which I'm so in love with, and everything in my life is going really well. Having financial challenges, and I've relocated a couple times in the last 3 years. So this, of course, creates financial instability. Moving your location. As a yoga teacher, meditation, I do henna and Thai massage. So I moved to North Carolina, and you're required to be a licensed massage therapist to practice Thai massage, Thai body work here. It's all considered, and that's not the case. It's different state to state. So I moved here, and in hopes of getting, and had scoped out a school and was very excited and looking forward to going to school. Not to say that I didn't want to, but I was getting used to the new city. I was having issues finding a regular job, trying to make myself integrated into the community in a place that's very much quite saturated with yoga teachers and healthful living, which is why I love it so much, but creating challenges there in as far as what I can do for work. And so it was May, and this had been 7-8 months I've been here. And I started thinking, oh my God, I can't get a job to save up the money to go to massage school so that I can get licensed, so that I can promote myself. And so I felt very much that I was stuck in this loop, in this lack of money, and And I was just having trouble stepping outside of that and changing that for myself. And that gets frustrating too, because when you've manifested a lot of incredible things in your life and then you're like, what is it in me? What am I not getting? So I had a series of really interesting things happen, and I sat for 2 or 3 days in meditation, silently inside, thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? I can't take this anymore. I need to make a change. I need for this to happen. I can't wait any longer for school. I need to be in massage school right now. And of course, I'm saying that with emphasis, but I was sitting in meditation, like really going through this in my mind, but feeling quite at the end of my rope and not knowing where the solution was going to come from. And so I went to go do some promotional stuff on my laptop in a coffee shop, which I love to do, and sat down and dumped my latte on my computer and completely fried it.
Uh-oh.
And I said, oh my, and I picked my laptop up and I dumped all the coffee, came running out of the keyboard. Like the whole 16 ounces went into it. It was really dead, and I knew it was really dead. And I said, oh, this is the last thing I need. Well, because my laptop was fried, I picked up Mountain Express, which is the Asheville community. It's kind of like the Village Voice of New York. You know, it's got all the happenings, what's going on. I don't really pick it up and look at it when I have my computer, because I'm always doing stuff on my website or whatever for promotion. And so because I broke my computer, I picked this up. I saw this ad for a massage school that I had not considered, and it said that they took financial aid, federal financial aid, which I never thought was possible. So here was belief number 1, which was false. I did not think that you could get financial aid to get into massage school. And I was wrong. It was always there and it was available to me. And I saw this ad because I broke my computer, thank you, universe. Thank you, universe, for knocking me over the head with the sledgehammer, because I wasn't listening and I was believing my false beliefs. And then within 36 hours, I was enrolled in school with financial aid, fully covered, and starting school on Monday.
Wow.
In 36 hours, it was manifested, and I started school 3 days later. So that's an example of being stuck. And luckily, I was able to see where my own false beliefs were holding me back. I could have been in school had I not had this false belief and been blocking myself. I could have started school in their January program and I would be licensed by now.
Right.
But it happened the way it happened, and here I am, and I'm very excited to be in school, and very happy about the way things happened.
That's amazing. It's too bad that you had to destroy your computer.
Well, these are the things that happen, though, when we're not listening to our inner voice. So there were other signs that I was not paying attention to. I had been next door to this school, I don't know how many times. I had walked past it, but I was locked in. I thought I was going to the other school. I was locked into these beliefs that they wouldn't take financial aid, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the signs were there and I wasn't paying attention. And this is what the universe, I believe, will do. Divine intervention. We don't listen to that voice, and then the universe has to kick us in the ass a little bit harder for us to listen. And sometimes that's a really devastating change. It might be a death. It might be, it can get quite dramatic if we're not listening to our inner voice. Things start to happen exponentially until we're back on our path.
Mm-hmm. You know, that's so interesting because just this morning I was having a conversation about that. You know, I said, you know, sometimes life happens for us and not to us, you know, and we go ahead every day in this survival game, you know, because you mentioned earlier, because we have to, maybe people told us to, you know, and we're doing things that are totally out of alignment with who we are at our core. And all of a sudden, the universe, God, angels, you know, they will stop you dead in your tracks. And it's in that moment, you
Hmm.
know, it's in that time, there's the opportunity, there lies a gift, but you have to be awake to see it. You know, you have to be conscious to know exactly what's happening.
Yeah, and I feel like even though at this point, I still can have blocks like that, I'm so much quicker to see them and to not be, um, that it's hard that what you're talking about, that feeling that life happens to you, that things are, that is not being in yourself. That is
Mhm.
not, I don't know how I want to explain that. When you have self-care, when you are sourcing, when you are doing things that foster your soul, that feed your soul, you can get through pretty much anything
Mhm.
without being angry, bitter, feeling put upon, feeling, you are stepping into your divine self, and everything just happens, and you deal with it, you walk through it, you make choices, you learn to see those little gifts like for what they are, and where they're coming from, um, and until you shift your those voices in your head, until you shift those conversations that you're having with yourself in your head, you can either choose to listen to the negative voices, or you can choose to feed your soul and hear the positive messages from your intuition, the places that you need to be, where you need to go to make yourself happy, to live your authentic life.
So, what are some things that people can do to connect? You know, we talked a little bit about, you did mention, you know, maybe you can sit at a stream for 5 minutes for you. You found a great connection in belly dancing. But how can, if someone had something that you can take us through, maybe a little exercise or just a little suggestion, someone had, you know, they're in the midst of something crazy that's happening to them right now, and they want to go within, they want to find answers, they're not really sure, is there some couple of things that they can do if they haven't really figured out yet, you know, how to connect? Like, is there maybe
Breathe.
okay.
Stop and breathe. Like, really, just stop everything. In the midst of crisis, even, stop and focus on your breath. There's some really short breath awareness things that you can do that bring you right back to yourself, ground you so that you're not reacting, so that you're not acting out of uncontrolled emotions. Because emotions are great at showing you where to do your work, but they're not a great place to like take hold of and ride on. Like,
That's
you
for
know,
sure.
you want to kind of be the eye of the storm. You don't want to be the tornado. You want to be in the eye of the storm, and to be able to direct how you react, um, not getting swept up in the midst of that. So, you know, I think one of the most important things and the easiest things for beginners is the listening to a guided meditation. And you can do that maybe if you can like put on earphones at your desk and pull up YouTube. They have 5-minute guided meditations that can calm you and ground you and center you very quickly, you know, just a couple minutes. So if you're at work, maybe you can do that. If you're not going to get in trouble, do it on your break or whatever you have to do. If you're at home, you can do that. If you can do that before you're going to bed. I specialize in yoga nidra, and that is a very specific traditional practice which brings you over time. It's a very good practice to repeat, and what it does is that reintegrates the sheaths of your being, heals trauma, brings you more into your center, makes you calm, balanced. It's, you know, different people describe different benefits from it, but basically, I believe that it is awakening that inner voice. It's strengthening your connection with your divine self. And you can listen to those. They're typically about 45 minutes, a traditional one. And you can listen to them before you go to bed. And some people just have that as a practice. And it kind of takes the pressure off for beginners. You don't have to like sit. You can lie down in your bed. You can lie down on the floor, be comfortable. So you're not trying to sit and be still and quiet your mind. You have something to listen to that leads you through relaxing your body, focusing on your breath, which again is like a really important key to sourcing, grounding, becoming more authentically you. I believe breath is the most important focus. So this is number 2, and breath is included in it. So then there's also guided imagery. So it's really focusing your mind and allowing you to take this trip into relaxation without any pressure. So it's very easy for beginners.
Okay. So you also do, you know, I have to bring this up because you are probably the only person I've met in my whole life. I remember your story. This is what I remember when we had our yoga training together when you went to Thailand. I think you told me you had tickets and a backpack and you did not make any arrangements anywhere to stay. You just know you wanted to go there and you went there. And I thought that left such an impression on me. I was like, oh my God, because that was just so scary for me. And you did that. And I thought that was an amazing, like, that is still amazing to me. Can you tell me about that?
I can. So I had been taking care of my great aunt for 4 years. I owned a house and she lived with me, and she had dementia. She had early signs of dementia. And so it was very much a struggle. It was beautiful and wonderful, and there were lots of lessons there, but it came to a point where it was difficult, and she was very isolated being in my home. You know, so we made a couple choices. And when I realized that this stage of my life was over, it was kind of like, I feel like there was some karma being taken care of there. At this point, it almost felt like the karma was released, and it was almost like graduating high school. Like all of a sudden anything was possible, and I had no idea what was going to happen. Before this moment, I had one of those scares, you know, where you have the lump in your breast and you have that week where you're waiting for the results. Well, my mother is a breast cancer survivor. So I wasn't scared. It wasn't that, you know, I was like anxiety ridden and freaking out all week. But while I was waiting for those results to come back, I thought to myself, what are you going to do? if you have cancer in your body right now. And the things that came to me were go to Thailand and study Thai massage, go to India and go through Panchakarma, which is an Ayurvedic traditional, very heavy duty traditional Ayurvedic healing. It's like everything that Ayurveda has thrown at you all at once. It's very intense. And go for healing with a shaman in Peru. Well, this is one specific shaman that my friends are involved in. And when it came back that I did not have cancer, my inner voice said to me, well, why are you waiting for a death sentence before you go and do these things? Wouldn't it be better if you were proactive and just go to do them and feed your soul instead of waiting until everything is, why do we wait until it's too late to do these things that we know are going to feed our soul? I know it's going to be good for me to do panchakarma healing, whether I have cancer in my body or not. How about if I'm proactive and go through this healing before I have such a bad problem that it may be too late to even help? So fast forward a year later, I knew that it was time. I was selling my house. My great aunt went into a more comfortable community home. It's a community living situation, which she's been very happy in. And I sold my house. I gave away all my stuff, and I bought a one-way ticket to Bangkok. So that was that. And I never once had any hesitation over what I was doing, because I knew that was my true self, that was my spirit speaking to me. I knew that was my message, and I knew that was what I had to do. There was one more little funny block thing that I had with that, though. And the whole time I kept thinking, my God, how come I'm not scared? How come I'm not anxious? How come I'm not nervous? Because it's what I was supposed to be doing. However, every time I tried to go through my stuff to save some for, I was thinking, oh, but I guess I'll have to put some stuff in storage. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I got really anxious. I felt awful. Like every day that I said, okay, today I'm going to go through all this crap in my house. There were some days that I could not even get out of bed, knowing that was what I had to do. And I kept having these dreams that I would just pack a bag and walk out of the house. I said, no, that's just crazy. That's not what's going to happen. That's not practical, right? These are the wrong voices to be listening to. That's not practical. That would just be foolish. It can't happen that way. Well, it did happen that way, pretty much. I went through things so quickly and just enough to make sure that family heirlooms went to my family. First my family came in and they got stuff. And then I just had my friends come, and they came with trucks. I had 2 big parties, and they came to say goodbye, take what they wanted, leave a donation. And then I was leaving like 2 weeks. This was 2 weeks before the house was changing hands. And so that was what happened. People came and drove away with truckloads of my stuff. And I donated to a women's shelter. A friend of mine was working with one of the local charities. So she had a list of things that they were asking for, and we did set those aside first. Sent those there. But pretty much, I kept some cold weather clothing at my mom's house, because I knew I would come back to Maine in the winter at some point, even though I didn't want to. A few of my really important spiritual art things I kept at my sister's house. Very, very few. I had a bag, and I traveled for 9 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And I did. And I did. In the end, after all of that struggling with those dreams and not wanting to go through all the crap in my house, you know, I ended up walking out of the house with a bag on my back pretty much.
That's amazing. You know, I love that story. I mean, I admire you so much. It's like living vicariously through you. That's pretty powerful. And one day I'll get there. Maybe when my kids are grown.
Well, I think the thing is that that at that moment, actually, because so many people came to my house to wish me well, I realized how deeply people were affected by me making those choices, and how powerful it was for them to be able to see my path, and for me to share my path with them. And not so much in the way that everybody has to sell their house and give away all their stuff and buy a one-way ticket to Bangkok. Certainly not. But that everybody at every step of the way has a choice to make, and make sure that that choice is in alignment with feeding your soul. Mm-hmm. That feeds my soul. That's my life. Be inspired by it, but don't copy it. Right. Every day, every single one of us has these choices to make. And, you know, what that looks like for you is going to be different, but what it feels like to you is going to be exactly the same. It's going to bring you that joy. It's going to bring you that joy, and you'll know when you're making the right choice, when you're listening to the right voice, when you stop listening to the wrong voices. And that, again, right back to, is always has to do with self-care. Always, always, always feeding your soul.
You're right, definitely right about that. And in my same conversation today, I mentioned earlier, I was talking to someone about pretty much some of these same topics. One of the things I mentioned was that sometimes we spend more time taking care of other things, everything else, everyone else, maybe even have a better relationship with our car, our house. You know, we will risk or sacrifice our self-care, you know, our being in alignment with our core values and things that truthfully make us happy, listening to our intuition, and, you know, trying to be practical. We sacrifice us, you know, and it's pretty interesting that we would make those decisions.
Well, it hasn't been modeled for us.
Okay.
It's not in our culture. Our mothers didn't take care of themselves. Our grandmothers didn't take care of themselves, you know, for the most part. Of course, people have story, you know, of course it happens, but in general, as a society, you know, mothers are told that they're being selfish if they're trying to take a minute for themselves. It's been modeled that you have to give up every ounce of yourself to take care of children, to take care of your children, your husband, your family, whatever it might be, your job, always putting yourself last, or else you're selfish and you're not doing your job properly. And it's unfortunate, because when a woman can model what it is like to take care of yourself, to feed your soul, and to still be there, and even more so present for those around you, because you are healing yourself. You know, you have to take the oxygen first. You have to fill your cup. Like, think of your heart and your soul as your cup. If you're constantly depleted, what do you even have to give? What do you have to give to your children? And this is why, you know, you see parents screaming at their kids on the street. They have no ounce of reserve left for themselves. And so it's hard to hold love and compassion when you don't have anything. You haven't been refilling your cup. You haven't been sourcing. You haven't been feeding your soul. And when that's full, you can give to the ends of the earth and not feel anger or resentment or compromised. You know, it's when you're filling your soul, when you are sourcing with the divine and you're growing your divine self, think of what that shows to everyone around you. Everyone benefits from that. We don't have those kinds of role models in our everyday life. Most of us don't. Most of us didn't, have that growing up, or have, seeing that that's even possible, or what that looks like. We have these false beliefs that if we take care of ourselves, that's somehow taking away from my kids, my husband, like, oh, I can't do that. It's in what I do, yoga, meditation, massage, even the henna is honoring the sacred within you and helping to heal you, helping to make room to get rid of some of this stuff that is blocking your sourcing, help you feel better in your body, your mind, your soul. One of my hardest jobs is to explain that to people and try to help people. I would say more often than not, it's women, mothers in particular, to not feel like that's selfish. That overcoming that societal belief, like, it's very difficult, and I think one of the important ways to maybe look at that is, I think I was telling you earlier about a workshop that I did with Wa, who was a really incredible spiritual, she does chanting and she has spiritual music that is all about feeding your soul. And she had a really interesting way of explaining that, that we need to think about what ways can we source throughout the day in short increments, whatever works for you, because it's not realistic to think that everybody can get up at 4 a.m. and meditate for an hour. And that doesn't work for everybody either. You could do it and you could still sit there and think, I don't feel joy. I'm not feeding my soul. What is it that feeds your soul? So take a couple minutes and think about that. What sorts of things make my heart sing with joy? Is it singing? Is it dancing? It could be belly dancing. It could be yoga class. It could be smaller things. It could be, like I said, just going and taking a walk outside by yourself and feeling that sense of calm come over you, and you let go of all those things that are, piling up on your shoulders, all those things that are weighing on your mind. What sorts of things allow you to let those go? And how can you work them into your day in manageable increments? Can you close your eyes and put on some earphones and do a guided meditation in your break at work when you're feeling like things are out of control? Can you take your kids and walk in the park? Can you lie down at night and do a guided meditation? I mean, there's so many different ways, but I think it's really important for everybody to sit down and really think about what it is for them that works and how can they incorporate. Can you go in the park and read a book during your lunch break? What would that feel like, to take that time for yourself with no agenda, really? Just like sit down, curl up, and read for a minute or half an hour or whatever. What are the little things that you can do to make you feel the joy of being you? What makes you happy? What sources you? And there's lots of little things that can be done.
So what What are 3 action steps that you would give to viewers? Someone who is trying to awaken their inner voice. They're trying to get in touch and they want to be in touch with that voice. 3 action steps that they can take now and implement in their life today, right after they finish watching this podcast. What can they do?
That's so hard, isn't it? Make a decision, one easy step about cleaning up your diet. Not something enormous, not something that's unmanageable, but take one step this week to nourish your body instead of putting something in that harms your body, because every time you harm your body, you're blocking your connection with your inner voice, with your divine self. So what could that be? That could be giving up soda, if people are even still drinking that anymore. That could be switching breakfast to a green juice. That could be choosing one night a week that you cook vegetarian, which lightens the load on our factory farming system, and also lightens the load for your body of what it has to digest. It kind of just gives it a little break. So that's twofold. That's doing something better for you and doing something better for the world. So that would be one, like take a step to clean up your diet, whatever that means to you. Maybe it's giving up coffee. Maybe it's, I don't know what. Pick something. Move. Find something that gives you joy to move. Maybe that's doing a 2-minute sun salutation as soon as you get out of bed. I know it's difficult for people to think about doing an hour of yoga. You know, it's just not realistic when you have a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old, or, you know, you have to be off at work at 7, whatever. You make your own choices. People do get up earlier so they can do it. But, you know, if that's going to keep you from taking care of yourself, then at the very minimum, anybody can do a round of sun salutations in 2 minutes when you get out of bed, and you're going to feel so much better. And that, being able to do that every day is a lot more beneficial than trying to cram in an hour or a 90-minute yoga class once a week. Or, you know, take a class, take a belly dance class, take something that you enjoy, take a drumming class. Do something to move, and do something creative that brings you intense joy. Maybe take a painting class or a writing class, or it's making these choices for yourself that remind you of who you are, where you may have forgotten. So I think those are 3 really good things. Do something to improve your diet. Do something to improve your exercise, moving your body, walk through the park, whatever it is. And do something for your creative, pure joy.
Okay. And if someone were to approach you and say, hey, Julie, you know, I am tired living by default. I want to live intentionally. What can you tell me? Excuse me. What would you advise?
Start doing your self-care so that you can hear those moments when they come with clarity. If you're unhappy where you're at, somehow make a change the things that you have the power to change, make a shift where you need to. But I think that you need to first be rooted in the self before you can know and recognize your inner voice. You know, it's start with self-care and start sitting and evaluating in a heartfelt way what's going on in your life. What would you do if money weren't an object? That's a great one to think about. Alan Watts there's a great video going around with Alan Watts. What would you do if money were no object? Now figure out how you can do that.
Is that on YouTube?
Yeah, yeah. It's a little speech somebody put together with the videos. It was a talk that he was giving to school children, high school maybe, I don't know, kids at school anyway. He has some great advice.
Okay, I will have to check that out. Well, Julie, I thank you. I'm honored that you spent the last hour here, sharing your story and advising others on how they can awaken their inner voice, how they can connect with it, how they can care for themselves and begin true self-care, and how to nourish your soul. I want to thank you for your time. And it was an honor and a pleasure chatting with you. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. And would like to say thanks to everyone else out there and have a wonderful night. Bye.
Bye.